Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the best Bach's Symphony cycles. I figured it was time to do this because we did the fabulous concert programs, and I have pushed and promoted these beautiful symphonies as much as I possibly could. You know, they constitute the Great British Symphony Cycle before Vaughan Williams. And it's with a bit of a heavy heart that I do this because I love the planet Baxian. I really do. But the political situation there, I've always said that people who love Bach's music belong on another planet. And of course, they do. And their arch rivals, the followers of Granville Bantock, set themselves up on the moon of the planet Baxian, which they renamed Bantockia. And now the political situation there, I'm sure you've read about it in the papers. It's just a mess. There is so much tension between Baxian and Bantockia. And since Queen Elizabeth died, and the Baxians have announced their intention to withdraw from the Commonwealth at the urging of Harry and Meghan, and the Bantockians are remaining loyal to King Charles, and they hate each other, and between Baxian and Bantockia, things are so steamy at the moment that the government of Baxian suggested that all foreign visitors leave for their own safety. And so I just, hopped on over to the spaceport, and here I am talking about Bach's cycles. I just hope that they resolve this situation amicably. I don't know if it's going to happen. It could be a terrible, terrible mess. But in the meantime, there are 3 complete cycles of Bach's symphonies that we need to consider, plus an almost complete cycle. Now, of the 3 cycles, 2 are on Chandos. One is with Bryden Thompson, one is with Vernon Handley, and on Lyrita, you've got all of the symphonies except numbers 3 and 4, with different conductors and orchestras, and Naxos has just boxed up. They've boxed up their Bach cycle. They put Bach's in a box. The Bach's in a box with David Lloyd-Jones and the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. This, in some ways, is the best played of the batch because the Royal Scottish National Orchestra sounds fabulous in this music. And so we have a lot of things to choose from. I don't expect there will be more cycles anytime soon, but you never know, this being the demented world of classical music. One of the reasons that Bach's isn't played is that he positions himself, or he's talked about as this sort of fin de siècle, decadent, Celtic twilight, self-indulgent, romantic guy. And he was. That's very true. But his symphonies are not easy listening. Not at all. They're very gripping, often quite dark, harmonically gnarly, formally somewhat, sometimes diffuse, although less diffuse than people say they are. They have their own very specific and characteristic form in 3 movements, often with a finale that has an epilogue, mostly quiet, but sometimes nice and noisy. They're not easy. They require concentration. They have their own world and atmosphere, and I think for that reason they're really fabulous. Bach was a master at what he did. And in his 7 symphonies, he did good. He really did. I think the best of them are probably numbers 2, 5, and 6. 2, you could add 3 to that as well. 2, 3, 5, and 6. The others aren't bad by any stretch of the imagination. They're just, more for people who already are into the style. Number 1 is a very, very anguished, gnarly, combative piece of music. Number 4 is more relaxed. It's sort of pastoral. Number 7 is elegiac and a sort of summary of the whole thing, but with a much more, again, more relaxed attitude. And Bach's, was at his best, some people would say, when he was not relaxed, when he was really, firing on all cylinders. That may explain the pugilistic attitude of the government of the planet Baxian and its decision to withdraw from the Commonwealth. It's that that fight element. They're much more of the Symphony number 1 mentality over there on Baxian, while the Bantokians are simply enjoying themselves, as they always tend to. Such a narcissistic and self-indulgent bunch of people, those Bantokians. Anyway, so while those two planets are arming themselves to the teeth and preparing to, the war of ultimate destruction, we are going to listen to Bach's symphonies. And it may be all that's left in a few years. We don't know. So what are the best cycles? Let's talk about them. First of all, Bryden Thompson on Chandos. He began with a stunning performance of number 4 with the Ulster Orchestra that was amazingly recorded. And that's still, I think, the best version of number 4 all around. After that, he moved to the London Philharmonic, which was a big mistake because Chandos should have stuck with the Ulster Orchestra. The problem is that typical London snob factor. The London orchestras are the London orchestras, and all the British musicians want to be in a London orchestra, and there's a bunch of them. But the fact of the matter is, the LPO doesn't sound as good as the Ulster Orchestra. They're not as well recorded. I don't think they play with as much enthusiasm and panache. And Thompson's interpretations can be a little bit flabby. And so is the recorded sound in London. I mean, it just doesn't have focus. It doesn't have that clarity that you need in these really densely scored pieces with their thickets of orchestral color and harmonic density. So I love the Thompson number 4. I liked a bunch of the others he did were quite good, but for the time, but they've been surpassed, quite frankly. They really have. And sonically, for sure, they've been surpassed. So he's number 3 in this list of of complete cycles. Next, Chandos remade all of them with Vernon Handley and the BBC Philharmonic. Now, the BBC Philharmonic plays very well for Handley. And Handley, who is sort of Adrian Bolt light, I mean, he's not the most exciting or charismatic guy out there. But Bach's was his passion. And he really has a very freewheeling approach to these pieces. His first symphony is, I think, the best of number 1. It is vicious, and he really whips up the orchestra. They really play for him. Because the BBC Philharmonic can be the dullest orchestra in the world. They really can be. They're not the most thrilling. They're certainly not as good as the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, let's put it that way. And I think that overall the Handley cycle comes in number 2. He has, aside from number 1, he is a dogged proponent of number 6, which he conducts quite beautifully. And his more rhapsodic approach to the music is, well, it sometimes pays dividends and sometimes doesn't. I think he's a little too interventionist, for example, in the slow movement of number 5. And I don't think has as much conviction after really, trying to make the case for number 6. I don't think he finds number 7 all that convincing. He's a very good Baxian. These are very good performances. I mean, this is, swings and roundabouts, subtle questions of interpretation. However, if you're going to get one cycle, then this new one, it's not a new one, but this new boxed Bax or Bax box or whatever you want to call it, Baxed box, is definitely the one to get on Naxos with David Lloyd-Jones and the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. First of all, he's got the best orchestra. They sound fabulous in this music. They have those really gutsy horns and fearsome trombones, and you need that. You definitely need that in Bax. He has, of the cycles, the best number 2. I think the best number 5, the best number 7. They're really fine performances. Lloyd-Jones is not as rhapsodic or interventionist as Handley is. He's much more straightforward, and I like it in this music because it imposes a certain shape in relationship to the music's various sections, which I think it really needs. The other wonderful thing about this cycle, and it's on 7 discs, is that you get fabulous couplings, really fabulous couplings. You get, for number 1, you get In the Fairy Hills and the Garden of Fond. And in number 2, you get November Woods. Number 3, you get The Happy Forest. Number 4, you get Nympholept. I mean, yeah, right, Nympholept. That means possessed by nymphs. You get Nympholept, the overture to a picaresque comedy, which I adore. It's a wonderful piece. Then you get the Tale of the Pine Trees new with number 5. Number 6 gives you Into the Twilight and Summer Music. And number 7 gives you Tintagel. Now, some of these are on a separate Naxos disc of tone poems. But this is a really well-filled, marvelously put together complete cycle. And of the 3 complete cycles, it's definitely the one to get. Now, when it comes to the partial cycle on Lyrita, there are a couple things that are essential. You must have the disc of symphonies numbers 2 and 5. Number 2 is conducted by Meyer Fredman. It is the greatest performance, hands down, of number 2. Number 5 is Norman Del Mar. Lyrita, generally speaking, has the best sonics of the batch. These were just beautiful, natural, gorgeous sounding recordings. They're just marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. So to fill in, you have to have one of the complete cycles, and this is the one to get. And then you should probably supplement that with a few of the Lyritas if you feel like it. It depends how hardcore a Baxian you're going to be and how you feel about the political situation on the planet Baxia. I try not to let politics get in the way of my appreciation of the music. I think that the point is to listen to the music and not to worry about the stupid people who claim to be, aficionados for other reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, I would certainly consider getting some of those Lyritas. And if you don't know the Bach symphonies, quite frankly, rather than getting a whole big box of them, I would start with that disc of numbers 2 and 5 on Lyrita, because it's very well filled, and they're 2 of the greatest symphonies and 2 of the greatest performances, which is, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. But then, once you're hooked, and I'm sure you will be, grab this. Grab this by all means while you can, because these were available as single discs. They still are, I think. But, finally, Naxos is starting to put together boxes of some of the wonderful series and cycles they have, and they're well-priced, and they're performances that are absolutely second to none. And I will tell you, they do a wonderful job, but these are quality. I mean, they're sturdy, they're well-built, they open like sensible products like that with folding. You get notes. I mean, the covers are, like original jacket things, or it's look at this. It's beautiful. It's very, very nicely done, smartly put together for serious music lovers. So they really deserve the attention. And that, my friends, is the deal with the Bach symphonies. I wish there were more. I wish we could choose from 27 different Bach cycles like we can, Beethoven and some of the others. But like I said, that's not likely to happen. And so we're going to take our leave of the planet Baxia for a little while now and move on to some other things. Thank you for sticking with me on this journey. I hope someday we can all rendezvous at the Sheraton Baxia and have a lovely lunch. Maybe that will happen. We'll see how it goes. In the meantime, keep on listening and take care.